guys, it's Michelle from Cozy Egg, and today is Monday, November 30th, 2020. This is episode 99. So I'm glad you are joining me today. Hopefully you've had a good November, and if you are in the US and celebrated Thanksgiving, I hope that you had a nice holiday. I know it was kind of weird this year. Actually, for Eric and I, there was no difference. It was just the two of us. It was quiet. I had the week off work, which was much needed. So it was really good. And it was nice to just be at home and enjoy each other's company and not have to work. You know, not that we haven't been home all year, but it was nice to not have to work and be able to just hang out and enjoy each other. So, yeah. So, let's see. What have I been up to? So, I talked last time about what I was planning on doing in November, which was basically no nonsense November. So I was really getting the feeling that I needed to focus on some things, get some things done, and Emily, Eclectic Possessions, and I talked about doing a no nonsense November, and I was like, I'm all in for that. So let me show you what I worked on. And I think the last time I talked to you was at the beginning of November, right around the 5th. And so I had basically, finished up dark October stitching, and then I was in a race to finish my Women of the Mayflower sampler because I wanted to have it done in that 66 days, which was my plan, and I got it done. So I started this back in September with Sylvia, running with needles and scissors, and we started it together, and we actually finished on the same day. I wasn't sure I was going to make it, but we finished on the same day. So here's my very first finish for November. And I'm thrilled with how it turned out. I'm really, really pleased with it. So this is stitched on 40 count Picture This Plus Mellow that I cut off the bottom of my Sampler Sisters piece, in case you recognize the fabric. And it was the perfect size to stitch this piece on, which was fortuitous. This was originally charted in Old Willow Stitchery threads. It was in this magazine, Fine Lines, and this was spring 2004. And so it was designed by Sarah Allman, who was Old Willow Designs and had Old Willow Stitchery threads, which are no longer available. Sarah unfortunately passed away before this issue was even published. So what I did was I basically did my own conversion to overdyes, and the Old Willow threads to me were a little, they look pretty saturated here in this photo, but then seeing them, so Sylvia stitched hers in the Old Willow threads, and hers were much, in some cases, much paler than what it looks like on the front of that. And I wanted much more vibrant, saturated colors because that's just who I am, right? So Sylvia gave me some, close, kind of a, based on what she had in her stash, she did a close conversion for me, and then I kind of took that and looked at what do I have in my stash that is close to that that'll work. And that's what I came up with. So if you have this, if you're interested in stitching this, I did put my conversion up on my blog in the show notes. When I showed this previously, which may have been a couple of episodes ago, I will repost the conversion when I put the show notes up for this video so that you are welcome to them. So I'm just really, really thrilled with it. And I know when I was talking about this previously, I was kind of, not really sure what I wanted to do about the names at the bottom because, of course, seeing Brenda Gervais' piece, her Mayflower piece has many more names on it than this had. So I questioned that, like, where are the rest of the names? And also in one instance, instead of putting the name of the woman, she actually has the name of that woman's daughter on here instead for some reason, which I'm not sure. But I decided, in the interest of not wanting to set this aside and have it become a languishing give up, I would just go ahead and stitch them as they were charted. And then I decided that I would, put something on the back whenever I get this framed that has all of the names of the women that were on there, as well as the servants and the children, the daughters. And so when I stitch this, there are some specialty stitches in here, and I did some of them. I just sort of picked and chose. I did the long arm cross in this green border, which I love the way that it looks. And it has kind of a raised look to it. So I liked that about it, that it has sort of a dimensional quality to it. I did the this eyelet border here and the one here. And there are some more eyelets on that flower. The ship was supposed to be done in this diagonal satin stitch, and I tried it and I did not like it. So I just did cross stitch, and I'm quite happy with it. The peacock's tail has some interesting specialty stitches on it too, and it also is quite dimensional, if you can kind of see that. And I love the way that turned out. So happy with that. Have all the names down here. And the names and the verse at the top were supposed to be done in the same navy color as the waves. But looking at, I think it was Lori and Percy on Instagram. She was showing her progress, and her verse, it looked much more purple as it does on here. And I decided I kind of like that. So I think I used Williamsburg blue for the verse up here, as well as the names. Just did them in a slightly different color. And there was also a section right here that was all done in specialty stitches. It was just like a box with some specialty stitches in it. I tried it, I didn't like the way it looked, so what I ended up doing, I put this number 30 here. And that is the number that I got when I added up all of the women that were on the Mayflower, the female servants, and the daughters. If that's not a correct number, you can tell me. I may or may not change it. But that's the number I came up with. So I thought it was worthwhile to put it on there to show that there were more than just these ladies. And I thought for sure the servants needed to be included. So that's it. That's my finish. Very happy with it. I was happy that I got to stitch that this year, start to finish, because this has been literally sitting in my 2 stitch pile, probably 15 years, which is kind of sad, but you know, it is what it is. So after I finished that, which I think I finished it on the 8th or the 9th, I had a few days before dark 13 stitching, so I thought, what can I pick up to work on in the meantime? And the perfect thing came to mind. That damn bird. So this is the Partridge sewing box from Blackbird Designs. I will show you the chart here in a minute. I started this as a stitch along with Diana, It Is Kismet Stitches, and Michelle Bendy, and Emily Eclectic Possessions. And several other folks joined in. Annette's Acre, I know she finished hers some time ago. So I got him back out and finished him up, and super happy with how he turned out. I did this on what I think is 36 count vintage light exemplar by Lakeside. It was just a scrap, so who knows, but I think that's what it is. And the coverage was crap with 1 thread, so I know it's 36 count. This was, the called for were bell swas. I did use some of the called for bell swas, and then I pulled others that I thought were close to what they needed to be. And I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. So when I picked him back up, I had all of this wing to do, and I had a good chunk of the leaves that still needed to be done, and then this little zigzag down here by his feet. And I just love him. This is another one that has been on my list to stitch for a million years. And I'm so glad that we finally stitched him. And so that was fun. I was glad that I got to finish him up in November and get one more thing off my plate. And so this is in Loose Feathers Summer. That's, you know, one of these three seasons. And here's the sewing box. So pretty happy with how he turned out. Happy to have him done. I don't know how I'm going to finish him. I am tempted to frame him to go on my bird wall. But I haven't totally decided. So, but I'm really happy to have him finished, and I got him done before Dark 13 rolled around, which was my plan. So then for Dark 13 stitching, I went back to, at first, Cog Crow, which I started at the beginning of October for the birthday sal for Socks for Mom Becky and Hollis Hands Creates Christine. So they decided to stitch this for their birthday sal. This is another Blackbird, and I was able to get it finished up. I really love it. It is stitched with all of the called for colors, all the overdyes. I think they're all Gentle Arts, on 40 count Weeks Cocoa. And that top just doesn't want to stay because it's Weeks and it's floppy. But I love it. It was a fun piece to stitch on. It actually went quite quick. I think I built that house in a day or something, or a couple of days. Really the only changes that I made is that there's a plant here that is supposed to have some little lazy daisy leaves. I put them in, didn't like it, pulled them out. And then the moon, I decided to leave the face off, and I just did that solid, and I love the way it looked. And it actually, so the way that it's charted is to have this darker color of the house around it, and then the inside filled in with, I think this is pumpkin pie, and then there's a face, and I didn't like the face. So I decided, since I was leaving the face off, I would leave that outer ring off too and just stitch the whole thing in one color, and I'm really happy for the way that turned out. And I love this bottom section with the graveyard and that house with the green door and the key. Just love it. Love it, love it. So that was fun. So this was another kind of quick-ish start and finish. I mean, I worked on it in October, and then I worked on it again for a few days in November and finished it up. So, no nonsense November. 3 finishes is not too bad. And I actually had a 4th finish that I debated upon talking about. And here's why. It annoys the crap out of me when there are posts about, let me show you this thing that's an exclusive that you can't have. It annoys the crap out of me. Not so much when, you know, people are showing this thing that they got at a retreat or whatever. It's more so, it's like, you know, when shops are saying, oh, well, here's this exclusive thing that you can't have. Then why are you showing it to me? So I've gone back and forth about whether to show this or not. So I'm just going to quickly show it. I'm going to quickly talk about it, and then we'll move on. So, and I'm going to have to time when I put this video up, because it will have to be after tomorrow night, because tomorrow night will be a big reveal. So I may have to hold this a day, but so you may have heard me talk about, and I think I've shown a few things that we got over the year, that it was the 20th anniversary of the Tudor Rose Sampler Guild. And so as part of that anniversary year, our president of 2019, who had started the planning for 2020, had a sampler, an antique sampler in her collection that she wanted to reproduce for as part of the anniversary year. And so I volunteered to do it, and I basically have spent a good chunk of 2020 charting the sampler. So it is finally finished, and the charts are ready, and I'm going to reveal the surprise to our members tomorrow night at our meeting. And it's been a huge undertaking for me, and I learned a whole lot. And it has been very challenging at times, but I just had to share it with you, because I'm just, one, I feel like it's a huge accomplishment, and two, it's also a huge weight off my shoulders. So let me show you Sarah. And so I know that this is an exclusive and you can't get it unless you are a Tudor Rose member for 2020, but I will be releasing her in the future. So December of 2021, you can look forward to this. And so I charted her twice, sort of. There are 2 versions of the chart, let me put it that way. There is a reproduction that I tried to be as true to her as possible. Any errors are my own. And then Shelley also suggested that we do a slightly smaller, more approachable version of her. So there is also an adaptation. In the original, there's some specialty stitches, mostly just satin stitch, but there is a freehand embroidery section, as well as some over one. And the adaptation is 95% all cross stitch, and it eliminates the verse, which is all over one. So it makes her a little smaller and a little more approachable. So let me show you Sarah, because I now have to give her back. So I wanted to take the opportunity to show this to you while I still have her in my possession. Plus, I just wanted to show you because I've been working on it. So here she is. She is under glass, so I'm going to try to eliminate as much glare as possible. But here she is, and she is a beauty. She's an Adam and Eve sampler. There's this big basket here, the verse up here. This is Sarah Ann Banton. It was stitched in 1833 when she was 9 years old. She is from Kent, England, and we have a little bit of her history. The verse says, "Amongst 10,000 vain delights, one thing is needful still. Lord, grant me Mary's portion then, and give me Mary's will." So the adaptation basically cuts off everything from the carnation border up. So it leaves the big basket, it leaves the Adam and Eve. I brought the border down, and then I also brought down these two vases because I hated to lose them because they have these little bees over them. So I did pull those down, but the verse is gone, the carnation border is gone, but I did save a couple of carnations and pulled them in as standalone motifs. So she is a beauty, and from what I can tell, she is stitched with silk on an uneven count linen that appears to be 45-55 count. So the reproduction is actually taller because she is stitched on this uneven weave. So she's a little more square looking because of that, but the reproduction is much taller. So, and I charted her in DMC, and then Shelley converted that to a Verissois Soie d'Auger 103 and Gloriana. So you can kind of take your pick on silks. You can use DMC, whatever. So anyway, look for that December 2021. And I just had to share because I'm so excited to have her done. And it's a huge, huge sense of accomplishment. So I hope you don't mind that I shared something that you can't have. Sorry. So anyway, so huge finishes. But I spent last week while I was off work kind of finalizing the charts and getting the presentation ready and all that good stuff. So yeah. Okay. And that's been a big secret to keep too. So. All right, so what have I been working on since I finished First Cog Crow? Oh, and I meant to show you. Well, you've seen what the chart looks like because you saw my finish. So, but that is in the Sisters book by Blackbird Designs, if you're interested. So, since then, I decided to go back to His Eyes on a Sparrow. So I worked on this I think the last time I've had it out was July. And I was trying to just really kind of put the pedal to the metal and get through it, and I just totally burned myself out. So around July, I put it away, and it hasn't come back since. So, but I could hear it calling to me from the closet, so I picked it up, and as part of No Nonsense November, I would really like to see this piece finished, so I thought this is the perfect opportunity to pick this back up and work on it for a little while. Unfortunately, I was struck down with a migraine for several days, so there was 0 stitching. But once I was finally able to stitch again, this is what I stitched on. So I'm working down here. This is where the verse goes, so I'm kind of in this bottom 2/3 of the sampler. And I finished stitching these 2 little guys. I stitched this little plant. It still needs its flowers. And then I've just been sort of focusing on the border. So I did the, the vine, and now I'm going back in and stitching the leaves. Because I'd like to kind of bring that down and maybe turn that corner down at the bottom. So that's what I've been working on. So I didn't make a ton of progress, but a little is better than none, right? And I am stitching this, so this is His Eyes on the Sparrow by Heartstring Samplery. I am stitching it with the called for overdyes, and I'm stitching this on 48 count linen that was dyed by Sylvia. So that is why my colors are super saturated, and I love them, truly love them. So I worked on that, and then for Thanksgiving, I had a new start. Oh, and let me just tell you, this is a cautionary tale. I'm going to turn this around so I can show you. So I put this, don't look at the chart, I put this in my new project bag. Beautiful, beautiful. But then I was like, what is this red stuff on here? It's the writing on my floss away bags that has transferred itself to the vinyl. So it took me a little while to figure out what the heck that was and where it came from. But sure enough, this writing came right off on the vinyl. Ticked. So, cautionary tale, be careful what you have up against that vinyl, because not good. Okay, anyway, so on a brighter note, Thanksgiving. So I started the Scarlet House, Hannah Tingey, 1823. So Christy from Crosshatch Quilts mentioned this on one of her Flosstubes a few months ago and said she was going to be starting this the weekend after Thanksgiving, and I was like, this is another one that has been in my stash forever. This chart is dated 2011, so it has been in my stash since 2011, and I love it. I don't know why I haven't stitched it. So this seemed like the perfect opportunity, and while I'm trying to whittle down whips, I did just finish 3 things. So yeah, so I decided I would start this, and I couldn't wait for the weekend, so I started it on Thanksgiving Day. And I am stitching it with the called for NPIs. I I have them in these floss away bags because, yeah, that's just what they're in. And these were the ones that I had, and I have my little Tudor Rose Socks for Mum thread keep. I had all but 4 of them in my stash, which is what made me decide to do the NPIs. And as I've talked before, you know, I'm really kind of at that point where I feel like if it's worth stitching something, I want to stitch it with the materials that I want to stitch it with and not some sort of make do that I end up being unhappy with. So I had most of the NPIs and I decided that I would use the NPIs. I had a piece of fabric that I was thinking about using, but then sweet Christy said, I have a piece of 40 count buttercream that I would like to send you. And I said, I appreciate that. So I have started this on 40 count buttercream by Lakeside. The original was stitched on 45 count vintage buttercream with the NPIs, so doing it with the NPIs. So I was missing 4 of the silks, or so I thought. When I went to pull all of my silks, 2 of the ones that I know are in my inventory someplace have gone on walkabout. So I don't know where they are. They're here someplace. But, so I just ordered them. I ordered replacements when I ordered the ones that I didn't have. And they're not here yet. So I'm having to work around the threads that I don't have, which unfortunately, one of the colors I need is the color for the border. So this start has not been all it was cracked up to be because I'm having to work around colors. But I did stitch one little strawberry there that's in the border. You'll just have to imagine the vine around it. And then I decided I didn't want to risk it and try to, count over to another strawberry because it was kind of far. So I just sort of have worked my way on this sort of diagonal. So I did this little moth, and then I started on the over one verse. There is a flowery plant thing here. So once I got the verse in, I could stitch parts of it. And then I started on this big band here and stitched all the red that I could stitch because I don't have the other colors that I need to fill that in. So yeah, this has been a little bit frustrating and it hasn't really been keeping my attention, I'll be honest. And I think part of that is just because I don't have all the colors that I need. And I think that once they arrive, and they should be here any day, once they arrive, I think that I will be more excited to work on this. But right now it's kind of like, but I thought, well, I'll try and see how much of that verse I can kind of crank through because there's a lot of verse there. It's all over one. So we'll see. But, and I thought I'd kind of, work this band over in between working on the over one. So I initially thought that I might put this down and go back to Sparrow tonight, but today's the 30th, so I'm kind of feeling like this needs at least one more night. And then I may put it aside until the rest of my threads come, and then I can pick it back up and work on it again. So, but I love how the silk looks. I love how the fabric looks. And like I said, I think once I get my other threads, I'll be more excited about working on it, maybe. So, and it's been a while since I worked with MPI, so that's been kind of fun. I stole some of these out of my Plum Street Paradise Lost, and some of them came out of Shores from Hawk Run Hollow. And some of them were just in stash from when I finished Colonial Garden, which I did in silks too. So yeah. So new start, old whip, and so for December, I think I'm probably just going to continue to work on Sparrow, see how far I can get by the end of the year, and then also, you know, once my silks come in, probably work on Hannah Tingy as well, and see if I can get her a little bit further along too. It's not a huge sampler, so I may be able to, you know, get some good movement in on her once I get the rest of my threads. I don't really have any other plans other than that. And I'll be honest with you, like the past, I guess, week or so, I don't know if it was from, you know, my migraine that just sort of knocked me off kilter, or if it was my finishing hangover from having finished 3 pieces right in a row and then finishing the charting on Sarah. You know, somehow, sometimes when you have like a book hangover, nothing else sounds good, like especially when you've read a really good book. And that's kind of how I feel, is I sort of feel like I have a stitching hangover. And so I know I want to work on Sparrow and I want to work on Hannah, but neither one of them is really holding my attention. And Sylvia asked me the other day, you know, well, if you could work on anything right now, what sounds good? I'm like, nothing really sounds good. So I'm just gonna kind of keep going and we'll see if something sort of picks up. To be honest with you, I've been reading a ton. I don't know what happened, but I've been reading a whole lot, which is awesome because I have barely done any reading all year. And I missed that. I missed that part of me. And I missed what reading does for me. Especially when I'm reading a really good book. Sometimes I feel like I was going to say it gives me space to think, but that's not entirely true. It almost is like it makes me think. And so obviously not everything is relevant, but part of what I, love about reading is that not only does it, is it a good story and good characters, but it's also something that sometimes it will give me a different perspective about something. And then, especially if I have something that's going on in my own life, and then all of a sudden those pieces kind of fit into place. And it's like, yeah. Or, if I'm reading something that really resonates with me and I can really understand that emotion that's behind it, that's behind the story and behind the characters, then it's like, then it gets me to thinking. So I love that books have the ability to do that. So it's almost like not only am I reading for enjoyment, but I'm also in some ways reading for self-understanding, if that makes any sense. I may not be making sense. But anyway. So what did I read? So I finished Midnight Sun, which was very good. Um, and I don't remember, how much I talked about it in my last video, but I think Edward is a much more interesting character than Bella. So I enjoyed reading from his perspective, and I think there's so much more there that you didn't necessarily get any insight into previously. So while some people have said, I didn't learn anything new, this is the same story rehashed and Stephanie Meyer's just out to get more money, I thought it was worth reading, and I thought you got a lot more out of it than just having read the first book. So anyway, so I finished that. I put that down, or finished that. Didn't put it down, finished it. And then I kind of, again, book hangover. And then I was like, I don't know what I want to read. And so I was, looking at my bookshelves, and I can't go to the library, so I'm still kind of not happy about that. So then it's like, okay, well, now what am I going to read? And I remembered that a while back, Eric bought me a Kindle book that I sort of forgot about because I don't read Kindle books, ebooks all that often. So I sort of forgot that I had it, but he bought me this book, Still Life by Louise Penny, which is a series. They're sort of cozy murder mystery books. And I have a couple of friends that have been recommending the Louise Penny books for years. And so I thought, all right, I'm going to give it a shot. When I posted up on Instagram that I was reading this, Jen from Corks and Stitches said, she read this one and she didn't feel like it held up to the hype. But I've also heard that the books after this one are much better because this one, she's sort of setting up all of the characters and introducing you and stuff like that. So I kind of see that. It's not super holding my attention though, I admit. And maybe that was, book hangover, and maybe it was just because I needed potato chip reading. Possibly. So I picked up this trilogy by Sylvan Reynard, and this is like the epitome of potato chip books. These require zero brain power, although, because of the subject matter, but although they're sort of, they fall into that sort of smutty romance category. But what I find interesting about these books is that one of the main characters is a professor at a university who specializes in Dante. Dante, of course, who wrote the Divine Comedy, and then one of the other main characters is his student, who is in the graduate program. So there is a lot of storyline about Dante and the Divine Comedy and sort of those works that are peripheral to Dante. And so that was the piece that I found really interesting. And strangely enough, so like the connection that I made in my head was between these books and A Discovery of Witches. And I have only read that first book. I haven't read the rest in the series, which I need to, but library. But they both take place on this university campus, and they're sort of scholars and they're researching and that sort of thing. And so there's that same sort of feel to it for me. And I think there was a part of me that was just like longing for, you know, university libraries with big, tall mahogany, you know, bookshelves and ladders and the whole shebang. I think there was a little part of me that was just needing some of that in my life more than the rest of it. But so I just sort of like ripped through, you know, all 1,500 or so pages of that in like a week. And now I'm back to still life. So, yeah. But it was worth a read. So when I was casting about trying to decide what I wanted to read, one of the things that came up is, and I may still read this in December, we'll see how December goes, but one of the books that came up for me was Dune by Frank Herbert. I've never read this. I know there are like a million books after this one, but this is really, for now, the only one I'm interested in reading. But I love this movie. And there have been, you know, a couple since then, I think like a mini series or something, you know, which was okay. But there is now a new movie that is coming, which looks really good. So I thought this may be the perfect time to read Dune. So we'll see. We'll see if my brain can wrap itself around this. And if I can settle for long enough to do that. So I've been reading a ton, like I said, but nothing that's overly taxing to my brain. And I've been trying to stitch, but that's not holding my attention either. So yeah, maybe I need to do the same thing I'm doing with my books and just pick up potato chip stitching, snack stitching, right in it. So yeah, so I think that's all I've got. So like I said, for December, I think I'm gonna maybe continue on with Sparrow, probably continue on with Hannah once my threads get here, and then we'll go from there. I have decided what my New Year's Day start is going to be, so I'll talk more about that later. Yeah, so that's really it. You know, while I say that, you know, Thanksgiving wasn't any different for Eric and I this year, really the main difference has been that we typically have a holiday party like, you know, the first weekend in December. Sometimes we have to push it to the second weekend, but the first weekend in December. And so typically the weekend of Thanksgiving is when I'm in massive house decorating mode, you know, getting everything clean, getting all the Christmas ornaments up or Christmas decorations up, getting the house ready for a party, deciding the menu, you know, and then the next week and a half is spent making, you know, an obnoxious amount of desserts so that we can have for our party, because it's an eggnog and dessert party, or cocktails and dessert party, and so I'm usually busy baking like crazy to get ready for our party, as well as doing things like, you know, sending out Christmas cards and blah, 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 all of that stuff. So because we're not having our party this year, obviously, I don't have that deadline. So we haven't even thought about getting the decorations out. So we'll probably get them out, you know, in the next week or so, maybe, but I don't have a timeline, so I'm not too worried about it, which just seems strange this kind of year because usually it's like hardcore, like at the first of the month, and then I relax the rest of the month. But when everybody else is like gearing up and trying to get things done, I'm like taking it easy at that point. But trying to get ready for the party is just like my main focus, and not having to do that this year. We may do some sort of scaled down decorating in the house. I mean, we're still going to have like a million Christmas trees like we always do, or at least 1, 2, 3, 4 Christmas trees. You know, but I may scale down the rest of it. Who knows? So we'll see. But I'm not feeling that pressure, and so maybe that's why I'm a little adrift. I don't know. We'll see. But my nails are pretty, right? This is, and they are starting to chip, so just don't look at that. But this is OPI, live from New York. It's OPI. And then the accent nail is China Glaze. I heard that. H-E-R-D. Pretty. Perfect Thanksgiving manicure. All right, guys. Well, that's all I got. So I will get this uploaded. And I forgot to mention that you may see at the beginning of this video one of my favorite things to do, which is when I finish a project, I get to put everything away. That's my favorite part. I don't know why, but it is. I love putting things away. So anyway, so lots of finishes. Hopefully I will settle on something to work on in December. If not, I may go to snack stitching and potato chip book reading. We'll see. But I appreciate all of you. I'm thankful to have all of you. I appreciate you checking in, seeing what I'm up to. I appreciate all of your comments and likes and subscribes and all that good stuff. And yeah, happy almost 1st of December. Thanks, guys. Bye.